In this module, we'll talk about the role of technology in the globalization of higher education and thereby in the globalization of English. A look at the education scenario in the 1990s tells us that people had very high hopes of technology. It was believed that technology will solve most of the world's education problems. People were also pleased about the globalization of higher education, and many countries were pleased about the fact that it was the English speaking countries which dominated the higher education scenario in the world. As a result of the improvement in broadband technology and the wider availability of internet, especially in Asian countries, virtual universities became very popular. And many of the world's prestigious universities offered online degree programs and many other facilities to the learners, including the learning of English. These online ventures included, as I've just said, many prestigious universities of the world, as well as other commercial organizations, for example, publishers. And some are very well known publishers, for example, McGraw-Hill, Pearson, and some other well known publishers, Harcourt. They brought out a lot of online material. Similarly, such prestigious universities as Columbia, London School of Economics, University of London, etc., they started online degree programs. However, the e-learning ventures of English-speaking countries met with almost complete failure. There were many reasons behind the failure of these these e-learning ventures. One was that the learners had very high expectations from these programs. Although there was a large number of student body in many Asian countries whose English language needs and also needs for higher education were unmet, they still were not ready to compromise on the quality of education. And they had doubts and suspicions about the online degree programs. And they were not very sure about how they will be received in the job market after completing an online degree program. So the learners had a little bit of skepticism about the quality of these programs, and they were just not ready to compromise on the quality of education. So if they had enrolled in a prestigious university, they wanted the online degree to be as prestigious and to be received as open-heartedly and as warmly as a face-to-face degree program. Another reason behind the failure of these initiatives was the amount of investment needed for the success of such ventures. The people behind these initiatives did not realize in the beginning the amount of money which was involved in such programs. There was also a lot of misconception about the cost of these programs for the learners. So there was this misconception that these programs will be more economical. And as it turned out, especially in the beginning, it was felt that these programs were, in some cases, even more expensive than face-to-face programs. However, with the further improvement in the broadband infrastructure in many countries, the universities or the people behind these e-learning initiatives have adapted their initial ventures, and they have introduced in many of the programs a strand which is based on e-learning. So we have what we now call blended learning, where face-to-face learning is blended with a strand based on e-learning. So we see that in all the in many of the education programs all around the world, this e-learning strand is a component. In fact, it is becoming a fashion these days to have at least one component in the face-to-face degree program, which is based on e-learning. So we have what we call now blended learning. It must also be understood that the success of e-learning ventures does not really depend completely on the magic of technology. A lot is dependent upon the management of human interaction. For example, it needs to be understood that technology will not do everything like magic, and the management of human interaction, the human touch is still very important. And also an understanding that instead of completely depending on technology, what we need is an adaptation of traditional pedagogical values and practices. So, an understanding of traditional pedagogical values and how they can be blended with technology is what the solution of the problem is. So, instead of completely abandoning e-learning ventures, the people behind these initiatives have understood that instead of completely depending on technology, a good idea is to blend it with face-to-face learning, and also adapt traditional pedagogical practices to make room for e-learning strands.